This didn't work.
Like the optical systems are able to operate during the night and in presence of clouds. This is thanks to the specific frequency used for the acquisition. The antenna is totally new and is able to acquire simultaneously images at a very big distance between them, and the data acquired contain a lot of new information with respect to the past generation. For the better use of the satellites and the exploitation of data, we have developed a new control center and processing center in Italy. This will enable the development of new science and new services application for the benefit of citizens, institutions, and entrepreneurs.
Cosmos SkyMed constellation is not only a very important technical instrument in the field of Earth observation, but is also an important support to the strategy of Italy to international collaboration. Thanks to Cosmos SkyMed over the years, and even more will be in the future with the enlargement of the constellation, we can establish collaboration with other countries to share use of data provided by the constellation, and to enlarge the coverage of the planet with other instruments offered by partners. I'm talking about so far, for example, Argentina. We plan in the future to do collaboration with Israel, and so on. Also very important is the fact that we use Cosmos SkyMed as third-party contributor to the Copernicus program of the European Space Agency and the European Union. In this way, we offer important strategic and precious data to collect with our constellation, also to other partners, to other producers of data, for the benefit of Europe and the rest of the world.
So that was a little bit of a brief overview of the CSG-2 satellite. One interesting thing to note is that it's going into a polar orbit. It's a Earth observation satellite, so it wants to see all of the Earth during its orbital mission. And in order to do this, basically it goes into this polar orbit so that the Earth will rotate underneath the polar orbit. And essentially the satellite, over the course of many orbits, will have access to the entire world for looking at it. So this is one strategy that space engineers use in order to try to achieve this type of mission. Yeah, so the constellation that CSG-2 is part of is basically a 4-satellite constellation, and this is going to be the second satellite of that constellation. So there's still 2 more missions that will fly in order to achieve the full coverage that they want, in order to get all the data that they want. Talking a little bit about the Falcon 9 vehicle itself, one interesting element of it, of course, is that it's reusable, and there will be a reuse attempt, of course, today. It almost seems like it's more normal that we see these reusable launches than non-renewable ones at this point. They've gotten so good at it. So I think that we're also going to talk a little bit about how exactly the reuse profile is working, and we'll talk a little bit about the important parts of the callouts that are going to come. One interesting, let's talk a little bit about that right now, I guess. So basically, we're going to have some important parts to look for are going to be the launch, of course, when the rocket will start taking off. And then the next part will be what's called MECO, which stands for Main Engine Cutoff. And that's when the engines of the big rockets on the bottom are going to shut off, and then it's going to separate, and there's going to be the upper stage is going to take off from there. So the upper stage will light, and then the big bottom main stage is going to flip around, and then it's going to re-enter the atmosphere and light its engines back on, and then come in for a landing. So we'll be looking specifically for those things as they happen.
Minutes from liftoff of the Falcon 9 carrying the Cosmos SkyMed satellite, and we're progressing into the final stages of the launch countdown. And again, we are keeping an eye on the range. The Coast Guard is working on clearing out a cruise liner from the no-go zone at the moment. Now, next up, we will see the retraction of the trusted structure next to the vehicle known as the Transporter Erector, or the TE.
And it looks like we still have some issues with that cruise ship in the no-go zone. Of course, we want to make sure that that no-go zone is clear, because if there's something in the way of the launch path, that could be potentially a danger, because if, let's say, God forbid, the rocket were to explode or something, you wouldn't want there to be debris landing on a cruise ship. That, of course, would be a big problem.
You can see it just below that fairing on your screen. That's where the clamp arms are on the TE. And the weather today, as you know, the past few days has not been great, but today it is all clear and looks amazing over there at the Cape.
So one interesting thing you may see in this picture is you see there's some smoke coming off of the rocket. It's not actually smoke, it's basically liquid oxygen that is that is coming out of the rocket and condensing in the atmosphere. So they basically, as they're filling up the tanks, they run on liquid oxygen and RP1, which is basically just refined kerosene. And the liquid oxygen is kept at minus 190 degrees Celsius. So obviously it's not minus 190 degrees Celsius outside in Florida, so the liquid oxygen is always getting heated up a little bit. And in order to compensate for this, they allow some of it to boil off, and it's constantly boiling off like this, and that makes the smoke trails that you see. This is just what happens when you're dealing with these types of cryogenic fluids. So you'll be seeing that all the way right up until the launch, because they always want to keep the tanks as full as possible before they launch the vehicle.
Now, at this point in the countdown, both the first and second stages are nearly fully loaded with 1 million pounds of kerosene fuel and liquid oxygen. Both first stage and second stage should finish prop loading about a minute apart from each other. First stage should be wrapping up here in a few seconds at T-minus 3 minutes.
Stage 1 LOX load is complete.
And there's that call out. Stage 1 LOX load complete. Stage 2 should wrap up at about T-minus 2 minutes. And you can see a little bit of white clouds around the vehicle. Now that's created when our propellant oxidizer, that super chilled liquid oxygen, comes in contact with the warmer air around it and condenses the air around it. At T-minus 60 seconds, Falcon 9 will be in startup. And this means that the rocket's autonomous internal flight computers have taken over the launch countdown. And then just inside the T-minus 2 second mark, we'll light those Merlin 1D engines for liftoff. Now, the Cosmos SkyMed satellite continues to be healthy, and the Falcon 9 team still tracking that the range with the Coast Guard with that cruise liner in the no-go zone. If for that reason we do not launch today, we do have a backup opportunity tomorrow at the same time, but weather is still looking amazing over there at the Cape. So with that, we're proceeding into the last couple minutes of the terminal count.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
So it's looking a bit promising. I think that we might be a go as long as that cruise ship gets out of the way. So hopefully that won't be the problem today.
Of the LOX line on the transporter erector. And around T-minus 1 minute, Falcon 9 will take over the launch countdown. And the flight computers will begin to execute stored programs to prepare the vehicle for flight.
So basically, once you come into within 1 minute of the launch, the Falcon 9 goes entirely onto autonomous mode. So the computers are completely in control, and if there's a problem, they'll either shut down the engines or react as they should. The humans no longer have control of the vehicle at this point.
Hold, hold, hold. Boarding the launch auto. Launch director calling a hold. We have a red range for a fouled range with a ship in the hazard area.
So this is looking a bit rough. It looks like they are aborting the countdown because of the ship that's inside of the no-go zone.
Because we had a watch item with the range. We did have a cruise liner making its way towards the no-go zone that the Coast Guard was unable to clear out in time for T0 today. But again, as we mentioned, we do have a backup opportunity tomorrow, so we will try one more time tomorrow. The vehicle is...
So that looks like it'll be it for today, guys. One thing that's interesting about these launches is that because it's going into a polar orbit, it has to be in exactly the right spot when it takes off and launches. So basically, if you miss the window by even a couple of seconds, you have to basically try again the next day when the orbital configurations are in the right spot again. So yeah, it looks like because of this cruise ship that was inside of the no go zone that was on the range, we couldn't launch the vehicle today. But yeah, so this is just one thing to think about with rocket launches, is that there's always lots and lots of variables that have to work exactly properly on the day, and when there are problems that happen with anything that are in all those sets of variables, you of course might end up where you have to delay the launch. So unfortunately, this is now I think it's the third or the fourth time they've delayed this launch, and not to mention the fact that this satellite has actually been through some delays of its own, because it was actually it was scheduled to launch on a different vehicle. It was scheduled to launch on, I believe it was now I'm going to forget it. It was on one of the European launch vehicles that it was scheduled, I think it was Vega, that it was scheduled to launch on. But that vehicle had been experiencing some delays because of coronavirus, and also it's had a couple failures recently. So I think they have, the CSG team has decided that they want to switch to the Falcon 9 vehicle instead. Yes, so the vehicle is going to be rescheduled. The launch will take place hopefully tomorrow at roughly the same time. So yeah, I guess we'll have to tune in and check it out then to finally see this vehicle launch. Yeah, hopefully we'll get lucky this time. All right. Yeah, it was great that you guys tuned in to watch today, and looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. And yeah, come with some questions, and maybe we can talk a little bit more about the vehicle as it's launching. All right. Thanks for tuning in, and hope to see you tomorrow.